Hello, welcome to Spiritual Sharing. I am your host Shannon. I am a newly practicing spiritual psychic medium. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about how you can become aware of the fact that you yourself might be a medium. I'll go through quite a few of the signs, quote unquote signs, that you might be experiencing or have experienced that can be guiding you towards the awareness of yourself being a medium or psychic. I'll then discuss where you can go from there in terms of your own abilities and gift discovery. I also want to lead you over to my Instagram page. You can find me by searching for Spiritual Medium Shannon, or one word, and there you can just find other resources and links to my various other social media outlets, also my website, and there's also ways for you to be able to reach out to make a booking. Okay, I hope you enjoy this episode of Spiritual Sharing with me, Spiritual Medium Shannon. Okay, so on the topic of mediumship and knowing that you're a medium, I know for myself when I was sort of thinking, is there something that I could do? I basically took to YouTube and the internet to sort of find out as much as I could, and let me just say the information out there is endless. I did seem to find, with given the question of, signs that you're a medium and how to know that you're a medium and to pick up, that they're fairly well consistent. And you may think that there's some sort of, I know for myself when I went into it, I was expecting there to be some profound knowledge around the awareness of being a medium. And I quickly discovered that, in fact, the signs, quote unquote signs, are really quite simple and basic, which again, the overall process of being a medium is quite basic. Even the act of mediumship, I find to be quite basic. It's really just understanding and learning to trust. Trust overall is a big one. In terms of how a reading is conducted, which I did somewhat go over. I will go into another podcast and discuss how it sort of mentally works, the mental side of mediumship, and really get down to explaining the nitty-gritty of how it all works, at least for me. But for now, we'll get stuck into 21 signs. So this list isn't so much a list, it's just different topics that I've decided and culminated from myself, from various places online, to come up with a list. But know that there's no regiment here. These signs are not limiting in any way. If you feel that there are other ways that you've come to feel that you might be a medium, the very fact that you feel you might be a medium is a sign that you are probably or are a medium. First things first, before I do get into the list, I do just want to mention the fact that, and this is a big one for me because throughout my life experiencing what I've experienced, I did always disassociate myself from any chance of being on the same plane as somebody who conducts himself and calls himself a medium, simply because I thought I wasn't special enough. I didn't think that somebody like me could be on the same level as somebody who actually does these things. And that was my own misinterpretation, because what I have come to learn and realize is mediumship, psychic ability, spiritual awareness, whatever you want to call it, it is available to everybody. Everybody can do this. Everybody is spiritual. Everybody has their own ability to connect and communicate with spirit, and it's just your medium that you will learn to grow into. For me, I connect with spirit on a level that they come to me and channel messages through. For some people, their tool for connection is tarot, which I also use. For some people, it's crystal work. For some people, it's energy work and Reiki. Everything manipulates and intertwines and connects like a puzzle piece together. It's just finding your own tools and what it is that you like. Some people conduct rituals and moon magic and what have you. There's no right or wrong answer. If you want to work with one tool, you work with that tool, and that's your connection. So I hope that makes sense. If you've got any questions on that, do reach out to me. But we'll get stuck into some of the things that I've got here for Sign Zero Medium. We did just kind of touch on the first one. Basically, you've always had an interest and a belief in the paranormal. You've wondered if you're a medium. You've felt that there's more to this life than meets the eye. There's more to your reality than meets the eye. If you ask yourself the question, is there more than this? Is this all that there is? Isn't there more? That curiosity is your internal soul, your internal spirit's guidance towards awakening and understanding and realizing that there's a lot more than meets the eye. The next one here is, for some of you, you might walk into a room or a new space or an unfamiliar area, and you might feel what I'm going to call an energy shift. It's that sensation of if you're sitting down and somebody sneaks up behind you and you just feel that the energy has shifted, that there's a difference, a different sensation in your aura, in your now space. So this same sort of thing goes with walking into a room. You might feel pressure, you might feel instant heat, you might feel cold, you might feel heaviness, you might feel the sudden urge to cry. Those are signs that you are more spiritually aware. You may be more spiritually aware. If you, like myself, had experiences as a child, you may not have them now, but you vaguely remember in your infancy or young childhood experiencing things that you couldn't quite explain, but you remember them clearly. You may also, as a child, have perhaps, you look at a photo and it's like you recognise that grandparent or that great-grandparent or that ancestor that you haven't met, and you sort of can't explain it, or your family can't explain it. Again, those are signs. You may have also in your youth had an unexplainable fear of the dark. You may still have an uneasy fear of the dark. You might be somebody that still sort of walks around and puts lights on, and I am very much like that myself. I was not overtly scared of the dark, but I do remember being scared of the dark. I do remember in my childhood I would be laying in bed asleep. Quite often I'll wake up in the middle of the night and sense or feel or see that somebody or something was in my room, and covers right over their head or running into mum's room or what have you. I remember I used to get put into bed, and I would share a room. I'm one of 5, so there's a lot of sharing going on, and I would be in bed and I would feel this, and I would get out of bed and go, and where the lounge room used to be, if I laid on the floor I could watch the TV, but my mum couldn't see me, so I would quite often get this feeling and I would go out and lay down and watch TV. And it's actually here where I found I'm a big X-Files fan, and I used to come out and sometimes catch the X-Files. No wonder I was scared of the dark. And Mum would find me half asleep on the floor in the kitchen looking through, and I'd be watching the X-Files. But anyway, losing track here. So again, that sensation, that possible fear of the dark. And it's not that there's anything necessarily to be afraid of. It's more just that feeling of not being alone. It's the, even if it's during the daytime, you can get this sensation, and it's just your body's reaction to the energy shift. Your body reacts certain ways to what it doesn't understand. Your ego will react to certain situations that it doesn't understand, and it's a defense mechanism. Somebody comes into your space and you weren't aware of the fact that they were there. Your body's going to go into defensive mode and react from fear. That's just a natural way that it goes. I'm so sorry, I keep saying it's such a bad habit. I need to get out of it. So yeah, it's not necessarily that anything that what's coming to your space is something to be feared. Definitely always remain cautious, especially in the early stages of your awareness, because you don't have those barriers up, you don't have those protections up, and I will be talking about those in an upcoming podcast. But yeah, definitely don't think that any time you feel this, it's something bad, because that's not the case. You should just, if you feel it and you do feel uncomfortable and you don't want it to be there, you can ask it to leave, and the feeling will go away. So the next one here, excuse me, for some of you, you might have a very active dream life, a dream state where you are a vivid dreamer, or you have lucid dreams. For a lot of people, messages come through via their sleep, when they're asleep, via their dreams, in the form of lucid dreams or vivid dreams. I used to, when I was really blocking out a lot of things, I used to have quite vivid dreams. I kept a dream journal for so many years, which I still have, because I would wake up and my dreams would just be so vivid, and the emotion, the amount of times that I woke up crying from something that had happened in a dream, or laughing. There was quite a few times where something would be happening in my dream that would be so funny, or so it just filled me with so much happiness that I would wake up laughing. So your dreams might be your medium, your tool for connecting with spirit. If that's something that you do, definitely take a note of them, write them down. There's always messages in spirit. Spirit can come to you in the dreams. I had a dream where my grandfather, right after his passing, I was dreaming about something completely unrelated. I think we were at the beach and I was there with people I didn't know. The dream itself wasn't relevant. And he just popped in out of nowhere and grabbed my arm to the point where it almost shook me into the conversation with him. And he grabbed my arm and he said, "Okay, you have to look after my Blossom now. You have to keep her safe." And I just said to him, "Yes, I will. And he said, "Okay, I love you." And he was gone. And I mean, my grandparents had a beautiful relationship. They were best friends. The sort of relationship that you dream about as a child. So yeah, that they can definitely come to you in dreams to let you know and pass on messages. Where have I gone here? I've lost my list. If you get woken up during the night and you don't often sleep too well, you might have bouts of insomnia. It could be that you are a medium, because for a medium, my chakras, which again is something that we'll talk about in another podcast. I might be getting a little bit ahead of myself here, but my base chakra, my root chakra, I need to stay grounded. All of my mediumship, obviously, I work very regimented, very, what's the word I'm thinking of here, like strongly, with my third eye and through my crown chakra. So I'm up in the air, up in my head a bit. I'm a very in my head kind of person. I'm always thinking tick, 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 tick. So the constantly being in my head can keep me up at night. I have struggled with insomnia on and off throughout my whole life. When I meditate now and remain focused on grounding after readings, I do have a better night's sleep. I've learned to manage that process a little bit better. Excuse me. For some of you, so if there's moments where you might see out the corner of your eye, you might be walking down the hallway or walking down the street or whatever it is, and you catch something out the corner of your eye and it will startle you, and you will be aware of it. It could be white smoke, sparkles, shadows, figures, auras, energy, and you'll just catch this thing out the corner of your eye and you'll sort of look, and there may or may not be something there. And this is another sign that you may or may not be a medium, or may be a medium. I need to stop saying or not. Let me just see where else I am up with my list. Another sign is if someone close to you has passed on and you begin to experience lots of things that you sort of can't explain. And I say can't explain, it's because when they happen, I've always been a very skeptical person, in the facts. So for me, going into this, it's like something would happen and my skeptical brain would step in and try and explain it away, try and debunk what had just happened or what I had experienced. So for some of you, the questionable side of it comes in, and I would do that, and I couldn't, and it was just like this sense of knowing would come in and be like, well, you can't explain that away because this is what it is. And it did take me quite a while to sort of accept that that's what it is, but once you do, it happens all the damn time. So it could be it's really hard to pinpoint what this even could be, because it could be a number of things. How this started happening for my family was when one of my grandparents passed away. He was quite a heavy smoker, and it was early in the morning, like 3 a.m, and he just passed, and we were outside of the hospital, and a few people were having a ciggy and a bit of a chat, and we were just sort of being in the moment, and a magpie come out of nowhere and plopped down on the ground in front of us and picked up a cigarette butt and sort of looked at us all for a minute and stayed there for quite a while, and we were like, oh my god, it's Pop, sort of as a bit of a joke, but it did sort of stick with us all. And then ever since then, my grandmother, my mother, various people in the family my grandmother especially, has had really unique experiences with magpies. We see them everywhere. So magpies have sort of become my family's totem for when my grandfather is around or when he wants to let us know something. It'd be 10 o'clock at night, and my grandmother woke up one night and here's a magpie up in the windowsill tapping on her window at 10 o'clock at night. So these can be things, and I mean, for a lot of people it's easy to sort of disassociate and to just say, oh, it's like a bird, like whatever. But in the moment when this happens to you, you will have a sense of knowing. You will just know. And the first thought that pops into your head, like if something happens and then the first thought is, oh my god, it's such and such, or I wonder if that's such and such, then it is. if something happens and you go, oh, the stupid hook fell down, like, you know, the picture fell off the wall, that bucket has been loose there for weeks now, well, then it's not them. It's just how that works. It's just that knowing and that acceptance of the fact. Another one is you might hear voices. You know, you might brush it off as just being thoughts or overactive imagination, or, you know, it might wake you up and you brush it off. This happened to me just last night. I had been asleep for a while and I woke up to someone, I think they were whistling, but it was like a whistle tune or something, and it was right in the front of my face, like, and I'm not sure what it was. I do have a reading coming up for somebody, so it could be that it's somebody coming through for them and it will be known clear, but that's another sign. If this one might be a bit broad for some of you, but stay with me. You may have conversations or pretended to have conversations with animals, cats, dogs, what have you. You know, you might be wanting your cat to do something and your reaction is to tell it to do it, but you know, whether you voice this or you do it in your mind, and for some of you might receive something back. It's easy to dismiss it as your own thought, but again, it's that knowing. You'll know. There's many a time where my cat's doing something and I'll say to her in my mind, like, just, you know, bugger off and I'll sort it out later, or come on, we're going to bed now, come into the room. And she'll just go and do it. Like the second that I sort of think this action for her, she'll just go and do it. So that's another sign. You may have activity in the home. You may hear noises coming from other rooms. You more than likely, if this has happened to you and you're aware of it, you're probably the only one home. And again, that's another sign. You may feel that there are times where you're feeling watched, like somebody is looking at you. There may be times where you feel that somebody is in your space. There may be those around you who have come to you and mentioned to you that they, maybe out of nowhere, maybe this is during a conversation, but they might share with you their own spiritual and paranormal experiences that they've had. They feel drawn to you to share this information. You've had paranormal experiences yourself that you can't explain. You may find that electronics, appliances, lights, TVs, doors move, what have you, but electronic devices in your home or in your space may tend to go on and off or flicker. Again, you will know if this is something more than just dodgy wiring. You will know. It will be erratic. It won't be the same as when it is, and you will just know. Okay, you may also, you may find that people come to you for advice a lot. You know, you're the go-to guy or girl for people to vent their caca onto you. And during this process, you may just, it's like you can just see what needs to happen. It's like you can just, they come to you because you give the best advice, but sometimes you almost have to hold back from really blurting out what needs to be done, whereas other times you can't hold back. It's almost like you go on this big verbal rampage, offering them advice or guidance with what needs to happen, and then as soon as the sentence is word vomit, we call it in my family, as soon as the word vomit has left your mouth, it's like, where did that come from? Why did I say that? I know that person's going to be pissed with me because I've spun this web of bluntness in their direction, that is a sign. That is the sign. That person needed to hear that. They needed that information, and Spirit gave that information through you. There was one actually that I put on the list that I sort of didn't even know where to go with it. I've not experienced it or even heard of it. And it was, I read it, I can't even remember where I read it. And mind you, this list has been put together. I've got it here in my book and on a document on my computer, because I wrote all of these down, the ones that sort of related to me. But this one I wrote down because I was like, what is this? Anyways, it's that you've developed like a nervous twitch or something, and it's getting worse. And I just was like, what is this? If you've had this, I'm so curious to know anything about it, because I'm like, I've not even heard of it. This place where I found it from, which I can't remember, was the only place that I come across this one. It might have been a lady on YouTube, I really can't remember, but she just popped into my head. But yeah, I was so like, what? Because I've never had this, and I'm not at all judging if this is something that you do have. It's just I've never experienced this. Like, because all the other, maybes, and you may have done this, there was some aspect to all of them that I could relate to, but this one I couldn't. I've never felt this. I've never experienced a nervous twitch. No. So I was just curious. So if you have, definitely let me know, because I'm curious to have a chat about it. And another one could also be anxiety. You may overthink certain things. You may, at times, it's like you begin to think on, how should I go about this, or what should I do about this? And it's like an influx, an uncontrollable influx of information will just bear down. And your thoughts, being in the head, everything like that can just get unbearable. And that was a big one for me. I've on and off suffered with anxiety throughout my life. Never medicated. I have gone and discussed with medical professionals, but it's never come to be that I've had to be on any form of medication. But since I've begun the process of grounding and working with meditation, and what have you, the looseness of my thoughts, the chaos, it's all settled down. And I'm not saying that that's going to be the case for everybody. It's just definitely worked for me. My insomnia's buggered off pretty well. It's only really when I'm going through the process of receiving downloads, which again will be another podcast, that I have sleepless nights. Just briefly, downloads is just when you're receiving an influx of new spiritual information. So that's basically my list. If you know of any more, then yep, they definitely can be added to the list. Do let me know if you know of any more that I haven't mentioned here. There's probably a few, because this list was obviously just something that pertained relevant to myself. Another one that I will include is just your aesthetic. I've always loved, the boho. I've always loved crystals. I've always loved little trinkets. I've always been sentimental to possessions, not so much in a materialistic way, in an emotional way. It's very hard for me to detach from items that are relative to myself and my family, because I find value in them. I will quite often hold a piece that I have that holds sentimental value, and an influx of memories and emotions will come from whatever it is that I'm holding. That could be another one. But yeah, like I said, there's so many. There's so many, because these are just relative to me, and everybody is different. Everybody's journey is different. Everybody's experiences are different. You aren't alone in this process. You aren't alone in this journey, and that's one thing that I've learned for sure, is there are so many people out there experiencing and undertaking the same spiritual journey, and they're at the same pace as yourself. So reach out. I've found so many in the community that everybody's just so willing to help and to guide and to get the messages out there. I mean, if you just go onto Instagram and either just look up spirituality or tarot or whatever topic it is that you're drawn to, you will find your tribe. There are so many people out there. So yeah, those are some of the signs that I've put together and come to realise were my signs. I hope that this podcast may help you in some way on your own spiritual journey. I am very curious as to the experiences of others in their process. So if you want to share that with me, definitely reach out. But yeah, there will be some more podcasts coming in. I am still aiming to get these uploaded every week. I'm usually a couple in front, but with uni starting back up, I'm no longer a couple in front. But some of the upcoming topics that I did just discuss will be the mental side of mediumship, the actual process that I go into in terms of channeling, barriers and protection, what you can do to protect yourself and place barriers, which was something that I didn't even realise I could do. Chakras, how they each work. I may or may not go into great depth with the chakras. That might be a chakras and something else video. I do want to talk about downloads and receiving spiritual information, so perhaps those two can go together. If there's a topic that you want me to talk about, I'm whatever comes through in these podcasts, I'm going to be very honest with you and share a lot of my, whether they're good or bad experiences. Not that I've had many bad experiences, that's, touch wood, blessed. But I want to get this information out there. I want to share with you guys. I want to be real with the process. I don't want to I want to make this accessible for everybody, because I did find that while there was a lot of information out there, when I really got into the tools of the trade, it was quite hard to find what I needed to know. So I just really want to share and put this out there. Anyways, I hope you've enjoyed today's podcast. I look forward to sharing with you again in the future, and I will leave it there. This has been Spiritual Sharing with me, Spiritual Medium Shannon.